Hey, I'm Madison McSwain, and this is my last semester at CCC, and I plan to attend Western Carolina in the fall. To begin, I have enjoyed taking this class and learning more about art. With that being said, my favorite piece of artwork that we looked at in this class is The Last Supper by Leonardo da Vinci. This is the piece that I will be critiquing. In the work, you see Jesus in the center. I believe this is because Jesus is the center of a lot of people's lives. By putting him in the center, you see how important he was and still is. One thing that I noticed is the vanishing point is directly behind his head. Color is another major element. Da Vinci used lots of reds and blues for the clothes. Red and blue are primary colors along with yellow. In the painting, Da Vinci is trying to bring the story of the Last Supper to life. The painting portrays the point in the story when Jesus tells the 12 disciples that one of them will betray him, and they are all shocked by this news. I think Da Vinci did a wonderful job depicting the scene from the story. He added a lot of details such as the spilled salt near Judas's elbow, which could symbolize bad luck or his betrayal. The importance of this painting is very great. It is known as one of the most influential works of art. The Last Supper was painted in 1495. The medium used was fresco secco, which consists of using tempera oil on a dried plaster. This is different from fresco, which is applied to a wet plaster. It being made from fresco secco made it easier for the painting to fall apart. This is known as representational artwork. Salvador Dali was thrown out of his home by his father at age 25. He used a method of which he called paranoid critical method. This was a self-induced hallucinatory state. Being in this state allowed him to systematize his confusion, which completely discredited the world of reality. Dali was part of the Surrealist movement. The Surrealist movement included ridiculous art and the painting of dreams and exploring the unconscious. Some of his works include The Persistence of Memory in 1931, The Face of War in 1940, and Lobster Telephone in 1936. André Derain was the co-founder of Fauvism along with Henri Matisse. The Fauvism movement created art that used harsh colors and flat surfaces. He went to London to produce a series of paintings of London, which at the time was the most rapidly growing city in the world. Some of his artworks are London Bridge in 1906, Portrait of Matisse in 1905, and Mountains at Colliers also in 1905. Sonia Delaunay was the first living female artist to have a retrospective exhibition at the Louvre in 1964. She was also a co-founder of the Orphism movement. The Orphism movement brought us art that went along with modern life. In 1975, Delaunay was named an officer of the French Legion of Honor. Her works encompass Les Bals Boulières in 1913 and Rhythm in 1938. Some techniques that I learned about in this class are oil painting, watercolor painting, and etching or engraving. An example of an oil painting is The Persistence of Memory by Salvador Dali. Oil paint is paint in which pigments are combined with an oil medium. An example of a watercolor painting is Restless Sea by Emile Nolde. Watercolor paint is a paint with a water medium, usually made by mixing pigments with a gum binder and thinning the mixture with water. And lastly, an etching or engraving of something is made by drawing into a surface and carving out the image that you want to appear. Here I have an example of an etching or engraving, if you will, that my grandfather made for me. It is carved into a copper plate to produce the image that you see. Art can be an expression of feelings or just something people do for fun. It can be meaningful or meaningless, abstract, non-objective, or representational. All artwork has a story as to why it was made. Art is just like music. It is a form of self-expression. But why make art? Art is about beauty. We make art to account for things in our lives, and also to pay tribute to a special person or event. As we look through history, we see how the different time periods have changed why people made art and how they made it. The history of art has developed it into what it is today. There are several different art movements that came along. The first art period was the Stone Age. Some of the art that we got from the Stone Age are cave paintings and fertility goddesses, such as the Venus of Willendorf. Another major art period is the Renaissance. The artwork we get from this time period are about rebirth. Some of the artists during this time period were Da Vinci, Michelangelo, and Donatello. We are currently in the postmodernism and deconstructivism movement. This offers us art without a center and reworking and mixing past styles. Two types of art production that I learned about in this class are printmaking and photography. There are 4 types of printmaking techniques: woodcut, etching, lithography, and screen printing. In woodcut, you sketch the composition onto the block of wood. Then you ink the raised portion of the wood, and lastly, you place a piece of paper on top of the wood and rub over it. Then you have your artwork. To create a print using the lithography technique, you use an oil-based crayon to draw on polished stone. Most commonly used is limestone. Next, you treat the stone with a chemical solution that causes the image to attract the greasy ink. Thirdly, you have to fix the image with turpentine to dissolve the original drawing. You then have to dampen the stone, which is absorbed only by the black areas. Next, you ink and press it in a lithographic press. The third type of printmaking is etching. For this, you begin by applying a ground to the metal plate. Then you draw the image. Once that is done, you submerge the plate in acid to eat away at the lines you drew. Next, you remove the ground and ink the plate, and you are ready to print. Lastly is screen printing. First, you cut the stencil and prepare the screen. Then you put the ink on the stencil and use a squeegee to cover the areas exposed by the stencil. This process is to make things such as t-shirts and labels for cans and any other products, such as Campbell's soup. Photography. I love to take pictures, and my favorite thing to take them with is a Polaroid camera. I have a newer version of the Polaroid camera, so it is by far not the same as the older models, but I would love to get my hands on an older one. A photograph is made by capturing light that is reflected off of an object. The lens is curved so that it can redirect the light to form a real image. The lens directs the light to go the same direction instead of all directions. A Polaroid is different than a regular camera. It produces the photo seconds after the picture is taken. The Polaroid camera was produced in the 1970s and took the camera industry for a turn. The film that is used in a Polaroid is a sheet of plastic negatives covered in reactive chemicals. When the picture is taken, rollers inside the camera remove one negative from the pack and hold it in front of the camera lens. The negative is held in position while the shutter opens, which exposes the film to the light that is coming in. Then the picture is ejected from the camera, and now it is time for the fun. Now you have to shake the film to produce the image. And here I have my Polaroid. Nothing too fancy, but it gets the job done. Art helps the economy by bringing in new products to be sold. It also appeals to all kinds of people. Everyone has their own aesthetic, and different types of art speak to different people. By bringing art from different artists and different cultures, it helps to widen the variety of what there is to sell. Art also has a great influence on politicians. Artists create images that depict the politicians and things that happen in politics. In this image of President Obama, it gives a positive look on him. The colors are positive and the look on his face looks hopeful. But in this image of President Trump, it gives a negative connotation to him. The colors depict a bad feeling, and his face looks as if he is yelling at someone, which is seen as negative. This is a piece of pottery that was made by a family friend. What makes it so shiny is that glaze was applied to the surface after it had been painted and fired. Pottery is also something that interests me. In middle school, we had a pottery project, and although I enjoyed getting my hands in the clay, mine didn't turn out so well, and we ended up running out of glaze, so it just looks ugly. And something else that I enjoy doing in my free time is painting, and And in my free time, a long time ago, I painted the image that I used for the module where we had to paint something, and I used acrylic paint. And acrylic paint dries faster and is a lot easier to use, I believe. It doesn't make things as messy as oil paint would or watercolor where it runs everywhere. And our acrylic paint is used a lot in schools so that it dries faster and there's less mess with the students. Before this class, I did not really know a whole lot about art history, and this class has helped me to learn more about that. I have also developed my own aesthetic and realized what types of things I like.